lots of disaster-related displacement observed during the decade. Virtually every attribution study carried out in this decade found that the risk of extreme heat is increasing significantly because of anthropogenic climate change. Heat waves were responsible for the highest number of casualties, while tropical cyclones caused the most economic damage. So we have the good news is that this is the first decade since 1950 with no single event where we have lost 10,000 or more lives. However, losing even 1,000 or more is already 1,000 or more too many. So we have analyzed in this report 13 events with more than 1,000 deaths, and 6 of them were related to heat stress, and then flooding or landslides 4, and then tropical cyclones 3. But the economic loss, especially caused by the wildfires or tropical storms, is tremendous. Next, please. So, as I mentioned, as I mentioned in the intro, for us it's essential to see the changing climate and climate parameters very closely in the context of all SDGs, and especially those which are looking after sectors like health and agriculture, food security, water security, and so on. But this time first we partnered with the national statistical offices and with some UN agencies, with sister agencies, to try to produce more quantitative assessment of how climate impacts in SDGs. And the report highlights especially pronounced impacts on SDG 1, poverty, on SDG 2, zero hunger, on 7, clean energy, and 11, cities. But like I said, for us, the water and other SDGs are similarly important. Next. It's not a finance report, but WMO is becoming more and more enabler of climate finance. For us, the important is not just how much finance flows, but where and how it is used. So we are very pleased that science contribution to finance is heard and recognized and helps. But this decade, the public and private climate finance almost doubled. But it also says that to really reach our objectives, the climate investment need to increase 5-fold annually to avoid the worst impacts of climate change. And I would also add, it also needs to become more effective, more complementary, and more sustainable. So the investment, the results, outcomes of investment would remain for a longer time. Next. Right. So I can only repeat once again that Paris goals and SDGs are mutually reinforcing and mutually dependent. We need to constantly look at win-win synergies and solutions where one advancement of one goal would not jeopardize advancement of another. So they have to go hand in hand. They should be complementary. And addressing climate crisis and sustainable development together, it's the only way to correct the course we're on. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For those following remotely, you will find the slides available in our Trello board that is linked from the press release as well. I know that those following remotely could not see the slides, and they are very informative. Dr. Blair-Trevin, do you want to very, very quickly add anything? We are running a bit out of time, and we want to let some time for questions.
Yeah, understood. Yes, I think my colleague has given a very good overview of the report. One point I would make is when we look at extreme events, many of the most significant impacts of climate change come through extreme events, and the pattern we see quite consistently is that many of the most extreme impacts come from events which are well outside the range of what a region has experienced previously. And if we just look specifically at heat waves, for example, we're in a phase now where most years, somewhere in the world, we get a heat wave which exceeds previous records by 2, 3, 4 degrees. So, we might look at global mean temperature as increasing at the rate of, perhaps 0.2 to 0.25 degrees per decade. But we are seeing, some of those extreme events set records by much larger margins locally. It's not the same places that are affected each time, but those are the events that often have particularly extreme impacts.
Thank you very much. And now we will open the floor to questions. Please stand up, raise your hand, stand up, tell your names. We'll hand over a microphone. Yes, please.
I'm Jacob Koshi from the Hindu newspaper in India. Just had 3 quick questions. One is, do you have any more specific information on the state of the Himalayan glaciers? What has been their decadal trend? Anything of concern that we should note? Secondly, you mentioned that the ozone layer is on the track to recovery. Is this the first time in a decadal sense that you are seeing the ozone layer recovering? And finally, is it the first time that the WMO report is mentioning climate finance and commenting on it? Thank you.
Yeah, Blair, start please with the Himalayas.
Okay, with the first 2 questions, there is obviously a lot more detail in the report than we've been able to cover here, and there is a figure in the report that includes information on glacial mass loss by region, and that is showing that we're seeing glacial mass loss across all of the almost all of the regions of the world that have mountain glaciers. We're also drawing on more detailed information again that is provided by many of the key science groups that are working in this space, and in the case of glaciers, we draw very heavily on the work of the World Glacier Monitoring Service, which is based in Switzerland, that have lots of good data going down to the level of individual glaciers. With the ozone layer, the turnaround is fairly modest, but it is for the first time that we've seen evidence of a turnaround on a decadal scale. You still get quite a lot of variation from year to year. So, for example, 2019 was a particularly small ozone hole because, and that was largely because some unusual things were happening with the atmospheric circulation in the stratosphere that year and southern polar vortex. Whereas some of the years since 2019 have had quite large ozone holes again because the circulation's been quite unusual. But the overall trend is, is for recovery in the ozone layer.
Just to complement here that the report says that we're expecting full recovery of the Antarctic ozone by 2065 and Arctic by 2045, but it's more recent and more small. But the good news is that we have taken the right action, and we're not contributing any more chlorines in the stratosphere, which are depleting ozone. And the whole also depends on meteorological conditions in the stratosphere, as you know. Regarding the finance, I think we put it in the report just to highlight how important observations are. WMO is definitely looking after the observations globally, non-research. And without proper covering of observation gaps and having the right data, such analysis would not be possible. So I think whatever climate finance is put in force, it needs to take into account the climate services, climate scenarios, and climate observations. Thank you.
Any other question in the room? Apparently not. Thank you very much. So please note that WMO will hold a side event in the WMO Mary IPCC Pavilion this afternoon at 1:45. It will be an opportunity also to share with all our experts, including Blair Tarwin will be there as well. So thank you very much. The press conference is coming to an end now. Thank you for attending, and have a good afternoon. Goodbye.
Thanks.
Thank you.